Time for a little Red Zone Sports, Pete. What do you got?
Do you have another one of your tapes? I think you do.
Oh, yeah, we do. We do. We got the Tennessee quarterback, your guy Milton.
He's a stud, man. That's a big son of a gun.
Let's take a look and a listen.
To me, the guy that's so impressive is Joe Milton. I'd take a flyer on that guy. He's 6'5", 6'6", 235. He's got a huge arm. This guy can throw the ball like 100 yards in the air, but then he can also throw it on the run.
He runs a 4.6.
He's a big-time athlete. Now, he's moved around. He was at Michigan. He transferred to Tennessee. But this guy can throw the deep out from the far hash and just stick it in there like nobody ever has. I mean, this is one of the great arms of the game.
And he played 9 games through 10 TDs and had no picks in 2022. And then in 23, he threw 20 TDs for 5 picks for 2,800 yards, 64% completion rating. I mean, if you want a quarterback where the secondary has to cover literally every blade of grass, this kid is a threat just being on the field.
Yeah.
And John, he's likable. He's great. He's got the stature. He's got a lot of things that I think it's not Josh Allen, but he's got size. He's got speed. He can run the ball. The only thing I question is this, John. So these guys are talking about all those things, and that's what Combine's all about, and that's this week, right? And then we've got all the different groupings are going to be out on the field soon doing their thing. But I think the interesting thing is when you look at the big games, so against Georgia, no touchdowns, no interceptions. That's you kind of scratch your head a little on that one. Missouri, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Bama, he played pretty well. He had 2 touchdowns against Bama. But you just wonder when you go up against the real competition of the group that you're with, right? The SEC in this case, you've got to perform. And if you can't perform there, you wonder about the NFL, don't you? I mean, that does become a question. So I think this kid's great, though. I think he's athletic. I don't care that he can throw the ball 100 yards. I want him to be able to throw the ball 30 yards on target, right, and get it to my receivers. That's really what you're looking for. You want a strong arm, but it doesn't matter if you can throw the ball like that. But I think he's one of the freaks that because of what he shows you at the Combine, I think he's going to show you the fact that he athletically might be the most athletic of all the quarterbacks that we're going to see. So that I think will be pretty cool. So I wanted to run into that and just give you a couple of them, and you and I can go back and forth. So here's some of the picks that I've got that I think will be freak shows here at the Combine, John. Braylon Allen. So this kid's been at Wisconsin. He's been unbelievable. He's plus 240 pounds. They estimate he might be as much as 245 or 50 in the Senior Bowl. But this guy, John, is looking to run sub 4.5. Now, that's pretty amazing, especially at that size. There's only been 3 running backs that are over 240 pounds who have ever run under the 4.6 levels. Derrick Henry, we got Fournette, and A.J. Dillon. So this guy's going to be in that sort of a category because of his speed, his ability, and everything that anybody who ever watched him at Wisconsin. Do you think that he could be a really good player at the NFL level, John, or is he a little bit overrated maybe? What do you think about him?
I don't think overrated when I think of him, Pete. I think that the kid's going to play at this next level. And, you know, obviously at the Combine, there are going to be some people that put up fabulous workouts, and there are going to be some people who just reinforce what we already know are tremendous talent on the football field. Because as Pete says all the time, folks, it ain't about, you know, you doing 38 reps with 225. It's how did you do, like Pete just said, against Georgia if you're Tennessee, or against Missouri, when you're up against competition that is at a par or better than you. It's one thing if you're beating up on the little sisters of the poor, but if you're playing one of the best teams in the nation, and both those two teams I just mentioned are two of the best teams in the nation, nobody wanted to see Georgia on the schedule, Pete, and nobody wanted Missouri because that team was loaded.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, as far as a guy that brings it, Pete, I want to see this Brian Murphy from Texas.
Yeah.
Because this guy will run faster than some linebackers. not flat out, he's not going to be the fastest guy, but he's going to be at 4.7 or faster. He's going to do the cone drill at some unbelievable speeds and so forth. And all he did was just disrupt every backfield that he ever got into, Pete. And he gets into a lot. So that guy, watch him. Defensive tackle out of Texas, Brian Murphy. I think that guy is going to be a freak show. And, you know, the kids from Georgia that they put out, Carter and some of those guys, I think he's going to be mentioned in the same breath as those guys, Pete.
And he should be, because he is everything you just said. I mean, that defensive line at Texas was unreal. By the way, they had a wide receiver there, Xavier Worthy. He's the one guy in the combine that they say is very, very likely to run in the 4.2s. So that'll be something fun to watch. Wide receiver. He's really small, but I tell you, he shows up in every single game and had a really, really great year this past year. I got one last guy that you and I probably have both seen in person before, John, but Cam Hart. Now, he's a name. He's a cornerback for Notre Dame. 6'3", 210-pound cornerback for Notre Dame. He can run like a deer. People can't wait to see what he can do at the combine for his 40 time, but he's also just a heck of a corner. And what I like about that, John, is in this game that we've got in football these days, you've got the wide receivers that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'6", and then you've got the wide receivers that are little guys, the 5'10", 6'2" guys, right? So it's a much different corner. But if you've got a corner who can go toe-to-toe with these guys who's 6'3", which is rare, but if you can get them, those are the guys that you can put on those big guys and have a little bit better shot. Because when it's all said and done, that physical side of some of these receivers is absolutely incredible. The size of some of these receivers. I mean, a great example of that would be Mike Evans, right? I mean, he's 6'5", 230-pound wide receiver. And then all you got to do is look out to Seattle, see another big guy. And then look to the Bears. You got another one. You go to Cincinnati, there's another one. There's big receivers everywhere, and you've got to be able to defend them. If you've got a nice big corner, I think Cam Hart's one of these guys who, from the combine, he'll go higher, but he deserves it anyway just because his size makes him that much more interesting and his ability. And he did a great job at Notre Dame in the past year. So I think he'd be a fun one to watch as well.
Pete, I'd say just to throw one out there, because this is a guy after Pete's own heart. Pete was God, what did you hold, Pete, for like 20, 25 years, the tackling record at the University of Minnesota?
Yeah.
And I forget what your high season was, but there's a kid named Peyton Wilson at North Carolina, Pete, the North Carolina State, rather, the Wolfpack, not the Tar Heels. And this kid, 6'4", 235 or something like that, Pete, he put up over 138 tackles his senior year. And the kid's a freak show physically. So that guy might be the closest I've seen to Luke Kuechly, Pete.
Yep.
And he won the Bernardrick Award this year. And that's a guy you want to watch and see how he does at the combine as well.
Yep, I think you're right. By the way, I'll slip it in there. 144. Anyway.
144. Nice. 6 more than this guy.
I just had to throw that in there. Anyway, all right. Hey, John, let's jump to one other thing that's kind of interesting, I think, right now, because we talk about free agency. This ties into that, the combine, all of that. The Buccaneers. Now, I can't quite figure them out right now, John, and they could be going a different direction than I thought. But are they flushing a toilet right now, or are they saying, hey, some of these guys are going to get this, you can have a franchise tag, you can maybe still negotiate with somebody, but we'll see how it goes. But right now, John, here's the free agents for the Buccaneers, and you tell me if this doesn't pull this team apart. Mike Evans, the wide receiver, right? Yeah, Mike Evans, we all know that. So he's likely to play somewhere else. Doesn't mean he has to, but he's likely. He's a free agent. You've got 3 linebackers that are all now free agents, all 3 starters. Devin White, Levante Howard, and Shaq Barrett. All 3 are free agents, could leave the Buccaneers. Their safety, Antoine Winfield, played at the University of Minnesota. His dad played in the NFL for a long time. He is a free agent. Baker Mayfield, free agent. The kicker, McLaughlin, free agent. The D-line, 2 of them, Golston and Gaines, free agents. I'll tell you, there's a lot of holes to fill. And with the new salary cap that we talked about yesterday, they've got more money than they had. And I would be shocked if all of these guys leave. I don't think they all will. But right now, they're all free agents, and that is a possibility. But of course, we'll know a lot more when we get into March, and then that's when we start to see the free agency market. But that's going to change things, John, and it's going to make it really, really interesting to see, because if Baker Mayfield, for instance, Kirk Cousins leaves, a lot of people in Minnesota think, hey, we want Baker Mayfield. So he's gone. Mike Evans maybe goes somewhere, right? He's gone. The next thing you know, I'm not sure where the Buccaneers end up, but they are going to be a very youthful team. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like they're going to be really open both to being picked over free agent wise and being a picker free agent wise, Pete. So I guess it goes both ways. And maybe if they weren't happy, I mean, Baker took them, to the verge of things they hadn't seen there in a long time, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Playoff football ain't something that's been synonymous with Tampa Bay, except for that one season with our guy Tom Brady, TBT, TB12. But my gosh, this is rolling the dice down there. So whoever their general manager is, Pete, he is a gambling man.
He is, and like I said, some of these guys easily could return. Baker Mayfield's already said, hey, I want to play with the Bucs, but he ain't going to play for $5 million, which is what he played for last year, John. So it's going to be interesting, and that number's probably got a 3 in front of it. He might be in the 30 million category, I think, and I'm not sure whether Tampa wants him at that level or not, but that's probably going to be the going rate for a guy like him. It should be interesting.
Yeah, and like we discussed yesterday, Pete, shoot, they could load him up with incentives too. They could give him 20 or 22 and give him 10 million worth of incentives. They've got 74 million per team to give in incentives.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, folks. Remember, go to marketrebellion.com/get started, and you could be trading like us. You could be seeing that unusual activity if you subscribe to our unusual option activity, or UOA. You could also pick up some great tips from our coaches and mentors if you need some education. So go to marketrebellion.com/get started, and we will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.